Welcome to Knowledgeable Aging. I'm your host, Jason Kotar. Joining us today to talk about devices of mobility devices is Linda McDougall. Linda is a holistic health practitioner, author, speaker, trainer, and massage therapist specializing in seniors and the disabled. She brings decades of experience working with our developmentally disabled, mentally ill, to now serving an aging population. As an author, she brings all this knowledge to her book, The Spirit Method of Massage for Seniors, Raising the Bar, a primer for massage therapists and caregivers. As a therapist in senior living homes, she saw many things that needed to change in order to offer residents more vital senior years. How are you doing today, Linda?
I am fine, and you?
Doing good. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to our conversation, Linda, but before we get started, for those that are joining us for our live webinar, if you have any questions, type your questions in. Time permitted, we will do everything in our power to get your questions answered. So Linda, I'd like to get started. What is a mobility device and what are they meant to do for you?
A mobility device are things like canes, if you're having trouble walking and need a little stability, walkers, scooters, and wheelchairs, and crutches. I might as well add that since I had my own issue with crutches at one time.
What are the most common types? I know you had mentioned canes and crutches, but what are the most common types of mobility devices?
You got the canes and the walkers, which are the ones I see most often, but there are big issues with the wheelchairs as well. They're all meant to hold you in your best posture and meant to be a support. That doesn't mean you lean on them. That doesn't mean that you put your weight on them unless you're falling or something. They're meant to just be there to support you as you walk along, as far as the walkers and the canes go. So that's one of the things. I've seen people put their arms on their walkers like this and walk, just like they're in a grocery store with a with a cart. And I just shaken my head because it's so damaging to the body, which we'll go into later.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, Linda, why do we incorrectly think that any mobility device is a one size fits all? And then what harm can come from that?
We do seem to think that a one size fits all. I have to agree with you on that because people buy mobility devices off the internet, or they go into Walmart or CVS or wherever and pick up a cane. You can go into even the medical supply stores and get something that isn't right for you because some people don't care. I had a 6 foot tall female client who came home one day as I was at her door going to work on her, and she was all leaned over this little aluminum walker. And I thought maybe we could adjust it to her height. Turned out it was already at its full height and it fit me, and I'm 5'4" or something. So even going to a medical supply store, if you just take something off the rack and don't ask for an adjustment or know that one is necessary to ask for, you can still come back with something that isn't right for you. If you're buying off the shelf in any of a number of places, a lot of people go into drugstores and just buy canes that can be totally ill-suited for them. And some of them are not even adjustable. Some of them are. If it's adjustable, then you need to get it adjusted or have it adjust it yourself. And just to be clear, it should come with your standing at your full posture, it should come to your wrist. That's how you do that. And I'll show you some pictures here. Just this woman is obviously, the device is too high for her because her arms, she is not walking inside the walker, number one. She is walking away from the walker with her butt sticking out. And her arms are too high, so she can't walk inside the walker. If you look at how, and she's not at her full height, she's bending over. So it's that kind of, I see that every day, everywhere.
So who is the best professional, Linda? I know we were talking off air. Who's the best professional to tell you whether or not you need a mobility device and what specifically you should get?
Professionals, they can be OTs in some cases, PTs in some cases. I just went to help a person pick out a walker the other day, and that's only because I know about this problem and I know how to deal with it. So I helped her. She'd had a stroke, so she's got one arm that will not do much more than bend, but the other one's good. So we adjusted it for the good arm and adjusted both sides as if they were good and went ahead. But you need somebody, and usually it's a medical supply store where you go get these things. And usually they should have somebody there that knows how to adjust them. But for people coming in, just know that it should be a cane or a walker should come to your wrist at your full height. If you cannot stand to your full height, if you're bent or something, then again, pick what's right for you, because it's going to be one wrist or the other. You're going to have to choose. But you want to right yourself as much as possible in your posture before you pick one of those devices.
I understand from a lot of the reading I've been doing, many people just buy these mobility devices, whether their doctor recommends it or not. So how do we get people to start saying to themselves, go and get the training from somebody, like you said, an occupational therapist or a physical therapist, before they buy these devices and potentially do more harm to themselves?
That's why I do these podcasts, is to hopefully get the word out there that you're harming yourself. And it can be on a permanent basis if you don't know what you don't know for long enough. People end up with wrist problems, elbow problems, shoulder problems, neck problems from having the wrong devices. If it's too low, that's if they're too high usually. If they're too low, then you're going to end up tilted to one side or the other as you walk, like with a cane, if it's too low. It's not meant to do that to you, but you'll do it to yourself if you choose it incorrectly.
Yeah. So you mentioned the word, I believe it was modification. So as an individual has a cane or something of that nature, how often should there be some type of modifications or adjustments to that mobility device?
That's going to depend on your prognosis. And as long as we're talking about that, this leads into the wheelchair. Wheelchairs at their earliest with Medicare will be replaced in 5 years, but they really don't like to replace them that soon. So you might be looking at many more years before they're willing to replace it. So you need to go to your doctor. You need to find out what your prognosis is on whatever you're dealing with, so that you can decide when you go into a medical supply store to get a proper wheelchair. First of all, it has to be a Medicare approved wheelchair. If you don't get that, Medicare will not help you with all the adaptive devices that may be needed over time. So make sure it's a Medicare approved one. And then they get a doctor's note that you need these adaptive devices for now, and know that there will probably be more as you age or as your problem gets worse.
Yeah. As a physical therapist that's been in the field for many years, Linda, can you help us understand what happens to the body as we age?
Oh God, there's so many things that happens to the body as we age. Uh, one of the things, there's so many things. Uh, hard to start. First of all, if nothing else kills you, scar tissue buildup in the body will eventually kill you. So you really don't want to be doing any more damage to your body to build up scar tissue than you have to. And if you're bending over a device so that you're not standing up straight, what that does is it will cause all the front muscles to contract and all the back muscles to be stretched tightly. So if you're constantly contracted and constantly stretched, you're going to be tearing muscles and you're going to be not giving them enough space in the front so that your organs get to a place where they can't function well if you keep going like that. And I have seen some poor souls whose heads have gone over to the side and down, and they could barely swallow or eat. And I'm not sure what causes that. I haven't found a reason for that. But again, talking about adaptive things in a wheelchair, if you know that that is where you're heading, there are devices for wheelchairs that will hold your head in an upright position for as long as it can be held that way without impairing whatever's going on, pulling you down. But there's just so many things. You don't want your organs to be impaired because they don't have enough room to function correctly. And that's the biggest thing with this front caving in, and that will also be caused by osteoporosis, because osteoporosis destroys the bones from the inside so that you just basically fall into yourself.
Are there specific doctors, Linda, that specialize in this mobility issue?
That I cannot tell you. I do not know. If there were, I would see a lot more people with the proper devices, and I see almost none.
Yeah. As regards to our stature, as we age, and you mentioned the impact of a walker, where if used incorrectly, all of a sudden now you're impacting the right side or the left side, and then you may find yourself at some point having more issues because you're using this incorrectly. It's almost like it's a vicious cycle, is it not?
It is. That's why you need them properly fitted, because, well, let me get you one of my other pictures here. This man's cane is way too short, or his posture is so bad that a cane is not what he really needs. One of the two. And if he continues to use that cane that is too short, he will end up in that posture permanently.
Yeah.
And massage can help stretch out muscles and shorten the other side and all that. And I do that for people all the time. But it's not going to stop it if that's your continued way of life.
So what would you say to a family member or caregiver that's watching this, Linda, when it comes to a family member, some action items, if you will, as they're watching this, when it comes to a family member that has some type of a mobility device? What do you recommend they do?
Well, I'm going to start with something that I haven't talked about on other podcasts. So, because it was kind of a side issue that needed to be addressed, but it's very important. I have yet to see almost any senior have foot supports. If your feet aren't right, nothing above you is right, and you can't stand erect. You're either flat-footed, where your ankles are rolling in, or you're high arched. Either one causes problems with the joints and with how you stand and how your whole body behaves. So you got to have some foot supports for these people. Even people who were high arched often are flat-footed now, but nobody gets support. And that's really your first order of business, because if they don't have supports, they'll never stand correctly anyway, more than likely,
Yeah.
unless they happen to have exceptional feet.
So I want to kind of go into this a little bit more, if you don't mind. I want to talk about your care team. As we get older, we hopefully have not just our primary care, but we have other doctors that are kind of involved in our care. With individuals that have mobility devices, who should be a part of their care team?
It depends on how dependent they are on that mobility device, but definitely PTs. I would like to see massage therapists more involved because they do need those muscles worked, especially if they're crowding their chests like we were discussed, because then we can open them up by taking the muscles up and taking the back muscles down so that we're actually kind of putting them back into position the best they can be put back in a massage. But there needs to be a lot of different people involved. That's one of my issues with the care homes, actually, is that when I ran my homes for the developmentally disabled years ago, we had everybody who worked with that client and everybody, we had family members and the client all involved in either annual or semi-annual meetings. And that was called an individual service plan. And we would all get together, all talk about what this client wanted, needed, get their input, family's input, and all these professionals around the person would put their input in, and we'd make an actual plan for life. And you get into a retirement home and you get a nursing plan. Now tell me that's something you want. A nursing plan is part of an ISP or individual service plan. It is not the whole plan. And for us, they seem to want to give us just nursing plans, and there's a lot more to us, and we have a lot more life. I'm 73, and so I don't like the idea of just a plain nursing plan when you're in a senior home, because there's a lot more to you than nursing.
Yeah. Can you talk about the financial aspect of, I know you mentioned Medicare, but for individuals that are going to be watching this or listening to us, what do they need to know about who pays for mobility devices, kind of the beginning of what that looks like?
Usually it's Medicaid if you're younger or Medicare if you're older, but again, it has to be an approved device, at least for Medicare. I don't know too much about how Medicaid works. It's been a long time since I run those homes, and I'm sure there's been a lot of changes. But Medicare will pay for the correct devices and the adaptations that are needed, which is what surprises me because I don't see those adaptations for my seniors anywhere. I don't see seat belts for people who slide onto the floor. I don't see headrests for people who have need of them. I don't see halos for those who need them. I don't see shoulder straps and posture supports for those who need them. Your viewers can go to image on Google, go to images, wheelchair support systems, and they can see all sorts of different things for different shaped bodies and different needs for support. When I go into a home, I see if anybody needs support, that pillows have been put there. No proper support, and the pillows are squishy, so pretty soon they're right back. And I once saw a man, and he was very diminutive, very small, and this was at an event at one of the senior homes. And he was put in this very large wheelchair meant for somebody many times his size because he was very tiny. And I just kept looking at him and he was like this. And there wasn't even a pillow. And he could have easily just curled up in that wheelchair and gone to sleep because he was so tiny and this wheelchair was so large. And I was just shocked that nobody had thought of anything to support the poor man. And he obviously couldn't support himself. And I went to somebody and showed them him and his problem, and they go, "Oh, I didn't even notice." And that's what I'm seeing everywhere. People don't notice it anymore. They're so used to seeing it. It's what I call blind-eyed care because you see it every day, so you just become immune to seeing what's really happening.
Yeah. When you had mentioned the height limit, I believe, when it comes to devices, whether it's canes or walkers. Is there a general rule when it comes to weight with regards to the body, how much body weight a cane can support, or how much body weight recommended a walker?
I would get a better walker if you have trouble, real trouble walking. If you just need a little support, like when I was in Hawaii and broke my foot and got the bad crutches that were too high, and I didn't know about this whole problem at the time, but the hospital sent me out with those. But I ended up, because I kept falling with those crutches, getting an aluminum walker myself, because that kept me stable and let me walk. So as long as you were only using it for support of your normal walking pattern and aren't leaning on it, a light one is fine. But if you're going to be somebody who really needs the support, oh, and by the way, walkers don't have to be the ones you see all the time. There are stand-up walkers, upright walkers. And you can, there's some where you just put your forearm in a little trough on either side and walk. And there's others where you put your whole arm in a trough and walk. So look up those as well, because I would like to see a lot of more people in those, because they actually support you to your full height themselves and keep you in a better position.
Right. So you had earlier, Linda, you had talked about medical supply stores. So if some individuals aren't going to their doctor and they're going somewhere else to get a proper walker or wheelchair, what do you say to them? Did you find a local medical supply company and go there, or is there better places online? I mean, the internet can be crazy with regards to what you should and shouldn't do. Is that a place you should stay away from and just go find a local medical supply company?
A local medical supply company, if you know what you're looking for,
Gotcha.
probably your best bet, because as long as you know how to size it, and you won't let them shove you out the door with something that's inappropriate for you. That's what happened to my 6 foot tall lady. She didn't know any better, and they set her out with tiny walker. And you can't let them do that to you. You've got to say, no, I know this one isn't right for me. Let's see what else you've got. Hopefully you can find a medical supply store that will help you. That's the idea. And you might want to call around first. I know in this area, at least a few years back, I don't know if it's still true today, but I talked to somebody who dealt with the medical supplies all the time. And she at that time told me there were only 2 medical supply companies in this county that were okayed by Medicare to sell the mobility devices. And I don't know, again, if that's true or not now, but not all medical supply companies are okay to sell everything. So you need to
Interesting.
find out. Yeah, I thought it was too.
Very interesting. What changes have you seen in the mobility device arena in the years that you've been working with those that are in need?
I have seen fantastic backward, I can't even call it progress. Uh, when I was much, much younger and worked at Camarillo State Hospital, they had a wonderful team and a little building that they could take the most deformed and twisted bodies into who needed wheelchairs. And they would work with these people to get them in their most upright and best position they could manage, and then mold an adaptive device to them that would fit in the wheelchair. So they were always at their best. They weren't allowed to slump this way or that way. They were always upright as much as they could be, even if that meant to a side because of scoliosis or something else. But I see none of that today. I see, like I said, my seniors, I see almost none of what I talk about for them at all. And either it's a lack of knowledge, or people are afraid they have to pay for them themselves, and so they don't. I don't know what it is, but again, Medicare will pay and Medicaid will pay if you go through their proper steps. I know Medicaid will because a lot of my developmentally disabled clients had that, and they got whatever they needed, basically. And I've looked it up for Medicare, and Medicare will pay. You just have to get approved devices, and then they will. And you have to have your doctor's note saying that you need these adaptive devices for that.
So we're talking about the stand-up walkers, and are there any upcoming or some new technologies in mobility devices? I know you said there haven't been that many, but any that you kind of see coming down the pike that kind of excite you?
There are, and there have been for some time, some exoskeleton type devices but they're going to be very expensive for the moment, and I doubt if they're approved. But I've seen some good things come from that arena as that develops and hopefully gets into more mainstream. I think it will help a lot of people get around maybe without some of these devices.
Yeah. So I have a question here from one of our viewers, and they asked, do people avoid getting the correct device because they don't want to be seen as needing a mobility device?
That could be very true, by the way. Uh, Good observation. Yes, some people don't like to think that they need them, and so they do without until they fall and hurt themselves badly. I've damaged this eye with fall, so I know that falls can be very damaging.
Somebody else asks, so if I don't go to a doctor and I want to play Google Doctor, if you will, what should determine if I need a cane or a walker?
Again, a cane will only support you on one side, and you're going to have to know that you don't need much support. You just kind of need a little stability. If you need more stability, that's when you want the walker. If you want two-sided mobility, because that's going to be what makes you stable, then the walker is going to be a better option. It depends on how impaired your balance is. And if you are not upright, you are going to have impaired balance, because if you're at all leaning forward, you're out of balance automatically, because your head, which is one of the heaviest things in your body, is already forward, and that's weight. I know there's a term for it, and I can't think of the term for it, but I love brains when they don't quite grab what you want. But anyway, you know what I mean. There's an imbalance because a part of your body is forward, and that causes you to be off balance and more likely to fall forward. And that's another thing, by the way, with the walkers, is you don't want to use them at arm's length, especially if you're a forward leaner, because that's more likely it's going to get away from you and you're going to fall and it's going to go. And I've seen people go with their walkers. So you don't want that.
Yeah. Well, this has been excellent stuff, Linda. How can people find you?
There's my website, there's my phone number. I can also be reached at arthritiscoach.com, which is arthritiscoach.com. I also have the book on the website, and I have several podcasts on the website. Yours will be going there soon. So we have several things that will be there for the listener, as well as a blog and other things. So,
Very good. If you don't mind, if you have your website, can you, if you haven't done that, I apologize, could you go ahead and spell out your website and your phone number for those that'll be listening?
okay, it's loveyourlongevity.com, LOVEYOURLongevity.com. And the phone number is 805, I'm in California, 202-6379. And I can do some things virtually if you need me to. So, if you need me to look at what you've got, we can arrange that.
Very good. Well, once again, thank you so much. Very, very needed, as you stated, for those as we age. As far as knowledgeable aging, you can go to our website, knowledgeableaging.com. You can see all of our upcoming and archive webinars. Go to our YouTube page. When you go into YouTube, type in knowledgeable aging. We encourage you to subscribe. We update that as much as we can. If podcasts are your thing, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Tunes, etc. Till next time, I'm your host, Jason Kotar, and this is Knowledgeable Aging.